and welcome. My name is Brian Caplen, editor of The Banker. I'm here with Silvia Pavoni, the economics editor, and we're just coming up to the annual meeting of the Inter-American Development Bank, which is going to be in Bahia in Brazil this year. The Banker now has a special issue out that's going to be distributed at the meeting. And Silvia, we'll both be going to the meeting. Obviously, people will be coming from all over Latin America to Bahia in Brazil. What issues do you expect are going to be on the table for discussion this year?
Well, first point I think to be made is that this year the annual meeting is going to be in a holiday resort in Costa do Sauípe, so which is probably going to introduce some even more verve in our reports, in our beachfront reports from there. So that's the first point to be made. Secondly, the agenda looks set around a couple of key points. So infrastructure, which is obviously a recurring theme in Latin America, as in other emerging markets. Also impact investing, as appeared in the program. Impact investing obviously is about investments that have a social or environmental impact, which is becoming which is getting some momentum. Also funding for small businesses, as well as funding for businesses run by women. So
okay,
these are the
so a packed agenda there on the sort of infrastructure, social impact kind of issues. But what about the general economy? Because it's very mixed in Latin America, isn't it, at the moment? And it has been hit rather badly by the tapering of quantitative easing in the US. So what's the kind of outlook for the major economies there?
It has. I think it has become more apparent now that Latin America really split in two. So we have the Pacific side and the Atlantic side. The giant of the region, Brazil, has really disappointed in terms of economic growth this year. We had even fears of a technical recession only a few weeks ago, which luckily didn't materialize, but the country still grew only by around 2%, which is obviously very small. And despite the fact that there is a lot of talk about shifting the economy from a consumer model to an investment model, many people remain skeptical. So that's Brazil. Then we have Mexico, which is another big economy in the region, which has done much better on the reform side. We know that they have introduced this massive wide-ranging reform package which broke the 75-year monopoly in the energy sector. And then we have the other countries on the Pacific side, so Colombia, Peru and Chile, which have become really investors' darlings. So they are very open market economies. Their GDP growth are much more encouraging. So we're talking about 4, 5, even higher percentages of GDP growth.
But then we've also got the ones that are the laggards, really, which is probably
Yes.
Argentina and Venezuela.
Yes.
And Venezuela, we're starting to see social unrest.
We are seeing that, as we have seen actually in Brazil as well, haven't we? So, there is a bit of turmoil in the region.
So there's a real lesson here, isn't there? Because Mexico has used the benign conditions that we've had over the last sort of 5 or 6 years to really embark on a reform program across a whole wide range of areas. So it's not just the oil sector, but it's education, it's banking and financing. Whereas Brazil, kind of threw its opportunity away in some respects, didn't it? I mean, I know it has done some reforms, but it hasn't really got to grips with a kind of an over-bloated public sector, and the currency was very overstrong for a while, and now it's kind of weakened gradually, and it hasn't really developed an export sector in the same way that Mexico has.
That's absolutely true, and a lot of investors will tell you that emerging markets will struggle, and many of them name Brazil as among the two that will have the strongest problems in reattracting investors' interest back because of the reasons, because there doesn't seem to be any real commitments to the reform to the reforms everybody's talking about.
Okay, but obviously there are places that are much more serious, aren't there? So I mean, Venezuela and Argentina are special cases in a way, aren't they? I mean, Venezuela clearly because of Chavez is gone there now, but his successor doesn't seem to be able to kind of hold it all together.
No.
I mean, do you think there'll be a lot of discussion about the future of those economies? And I mean, they could have a disruptive effect on the continent, couldn't they, if they do spill over?
It's funny because every time we travel to Latin America, we ask this question. Everybody seems to think that actually Venezuela has a kind of limited impact on the rest of the region.
Right.
Although it is still an element of worry when you look at that side of the world.
And then, but what about Argentina? I mean, that's more
Argentina
serious,
it's a different situation. Yes, it is. We actually saw some kind of optimistic signs coming out of the central bank because they relaxed their stance on currency control, which in a way it is positive, although that obviously caused the currency to depreciate strongly. The other element with Argentina is that in 2015 we're going to have presidential elections, and everybody we speak to, they all take for granted that it will change the country. So
okay, all right. Well, lots to discuss there, and we look forward to meeting everybody in Brazil. Thank you very much.